Hey, welcome! Today we are going to tackle three of the most famous names you hear on the news literally every single day. The S&P 500, the Nasdaq, and the Dow. And trust me, by the time we're done here, you're going to get exactly what they are and what they're trying to tell us.
Okay, so let's just dive right in. Picture this. There are thousands and thousands of companies trading on the stock market. Now, if you want to get a sense of how things are going on any given day, how on earth do you do that? You can't possibly watch them all at once. That'd be like trying to track every single player on every team in an entire league simultaneously. It's just chaos. So how do we get a simple, clear picture out of all that noise? Well, the answer is something called an index. And honestly, the absolute best way to think about an index is as the team score for the market, right? You don't need to know every single player's stats to know if your team is winning or losing. You just glance up at the scoreboard. An index? That's the market scoreboard. So let's talk about that a little more. How do we actually go from the chaos of thousands of stocks pulling in different directions to one single meaningful number? So here's the official definition. A stock index is a curated, and that's a keyword, a curated group of stocks that are used to measure how a specific slice of the market is doing. It is not every stock. The perfect analogy is an all-star team. An all-star team doesn't have every player in the league, of course not. But their performance, it gives you a really, really good idea of the overall talent and the trends happening across the whole sport. All right, with that in mind, let's meet the three most famous of these all-star teams. These are the big three you always see flashing across the bottom of the news screen. You can really see their different personalities here. First up, the S&P 500. Think of this as the biggest, most diverse team, with 500 of the largest U.S. companies from pretty much every industry. Then you've got the Nasdaq 100. This is like a high-tech dream team. It tracks 100 of the biggest companies on the Nasdaq exchange, but, and this is key, it excludes financial companies, so you get a ton of tech and growth stocks. And finally, the Dow. The Dow is the old-school veteran squad. It's an exclusive club of just 30 massive, super-established blue-chip companies. We're talking about the household names that have been around forever. Now, here's a really crucial difference that you've got to know. They don't even calculate the score the same way. The Dow is what's called price-weighted. It's a bit of an older method. Basically, a company with a high stock price has more sway than a company with a low one, regardless of how big the company actually is. It's like the star player's points count for more than anyone else's. The S&P 500, on the other hand, is market cap weighted, which is what most modern indexes use. This just means the bigger the company's total value, the more it moves the index. It's about the team's total value, not just one flashy player. Okay, so we know who's on the teams, we know how the score is calculated, but what do we actually do with that information? When you see the Dow is up 200 points, what does that really, truly mean? Here's the most important thing to remember. Any change you see in an index is just a snapshot. That's it. It tells you the general direction that a specific group of stocks is headed at a particular moment. It's the score in the middle of the third quarter. It's not the final result, and it's definitely not the whole season. And just as important as knowing what an index is knowing what it is not. And understanding this difference will help you avoid some really common misunderstandings. So we see the headlines, right? The S&P 500 is up, the market is soaring, and our immediate gut reaction is to think, great, that's good news for everybody. The economy is doing well. But, and this is a huge but, that is a massive misconception. A rising stock market is absolutely not the same thing as a healthy economy. They're related, for sure, but they are two very different things. Think about it. The huge multinational companies in the S&P 500 could be having a record year globally, even while small businesses on Main Street are really struggling. I love this quote because it puts it perfectly. An index tells you the score of the game being played by these big companies. The broader economy, that's the weather outside the stadium. It's everything else. Jobs, inflation, how much gas costs. They definitely affect each other, but they are not the same thing. So to make this all super practical, I want to give you a simple checklist, a framework you can use anytime you hear about any index, not just these three. It's just three simple questions. First, who's on the team? Are we talking about 30 companies or 500? Are they from one industry or all over the place? Second, how is the score calculated? Is it that old-school price-weighted method like the Dow, or is it based on company size like the S&P? And finally, step 3, what's its flavor? Is it trying to be a broad, general snapshot, or is it focused on a specific niche like tech or industrial giants? If you can answer those 3 questions, you'll know pretty much everything you need to know. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground. So let's just boil it all down to the absolute essentials. If you only remember 3 things from all of this, please make it these 3. Number 1, indexes are simply team scores. They're useful shortcuts, but they aren't the whole picture. Number 2, the big 3, the S&P, Nasdaq, and Dow, are just different teams with different players and different rules. And number 3, probably the most important of all, an index gives you the score of the game, not the weather outside the stadium. It's a market snapshot, not the entire economy. And that really leaves us with a pretty interesting question to think about. These indexes we've talked about were designed to measure the economy of their day. But as our world keeps changing, what new teams and what new scores are we going to need to track the markets of the future? Of course, these indexes are just the scoreboard. In our next explainer, we're going to talk about the actual players on the field making all the moves. Hope you'll join us for that.